After a heart attack, doctors don't give advice. They give an order. Take these pills every single day, or you may not survive the year. Almost every patient nods. Almost every patient means it. And within 6 months, half of them have quietly stopped. Not because they forgot. Not because they couldn't afford it. They simply drifted away from a promise made to no one but themselves. At the exact moment, their own life was the bet on the table. And once you see that fact, you can't unsee it. We are more reliable to strangers than we are to ourselves. You'd never no-show a lunch with someone you barely like. But you'll skip the gym, skip the pills, skip the promise. Do you? So what's actually breaking? Not willpower. Something stranger. In the early 2000s, neuroscientist Samuel McClure put people in an MRI scanner and asked them to choose a small reward now or a bigger one later. As the choices got harder, the scans revealed something nobody expected. 2 separate brain systems fighting over the same decision. One, buried in the limbic system, only cared about right now. The other, in the prefrontal cortex, calmly tracked value across time. 2 votes. One skull, and when the moment got intense enough, the impatient system simply won. You weren't weak. You were outvoted. Economists call this present bias, and it explains something logic never could. The future version of you always sounds more disciplined, because that version never actually has to do the work. The one lacing up shoes at 6 a.m. is a completely different voter. Psychiatrist George Ainsley took this further. We aren't one continuous person at all. We're a chain of temporary selves, each one negotiating, sometimes fighting, with the ones before and after. Every promise you make yourself isn't a private vow, it's a treaty, and the government currently in power rarely feels bound by what the last one signed, which means someone, long before brain scanners existed, had already solved this. Homer's Odysseus wanted to hear the sirens sing, knowing that the moment he did, he'd beg to steer his ship straight into the rocks. So he didn't trust that future version of himself for 1 second. He had his crew tie him to the mast, stuff their own ears with wax, and gave them one order in advance. Ignore everything I scream once the music starts. Thousands of years later, Thomas Schelling found people doing the same thing, freezing their credit cards in blocks of ice, handing car keys to a friend before the party even begins. None of them are disciplined in the moment. They're disciplined in advance, by making sure the moment never gets a vote. But here's the twist that changes everything. For 50 years, the most famous proof of willpower came from a room at Stanford, a child, and a marshmallow. Wait, and you get a second one. Walter Mischel found the kids who waited longest grew up to do better in life. A study so famous, it's basically self-help scripture now. Then, in 2018, a bigger, sharper replication tore it apart. Once researchers controlled for family income, most of that willpower effect vanished. Kids from stable homes could afford to trust a second marshmallow was coming. Kids, who'd already learned that adult promises sometimes don't hold, took the one reward they could actually be sure of. It was never a pure test of self-control. It was a test of how trustworthy their world had been, which means breaking a promise to yourself was never a character flaw. It's what happens when a present self, built by evolution to grab what's in front of it, negotiates with a future self who isn't even in the room yet. The man who stops taking his pills in April isn't lying to the man who swore he'd take them in January. He's being run by a different administration entirely, one with no memory of the fear he felt in that hospital bed. And this doesn't stop at one person. It's the same mechanism behind climate pledges signed in good faith and quietly abandoned for decades. Pension funds postponed the same way a diet gets postponed. Entire civilizations making the Odysseus bargain, and then, once at sea, reaching straight for the ropes. So the fix was never more guilt, more willpower, more New Year sincerity. The fix is structural. Build the mast before you hear the song. Automate the money before payday can tempt you. Put the pills next to the toothbrush your hands already trust without thinking. Say the promise out loud to someone else. So quitting means quitting in front of a witness, because 6 months from now, someone is going to decide whether to keep the promise you're making right now. That someone is a stranger wearing your face. The only real question is, are you building anything strong enough for him to keep it?